Hello there, my fellow mythologians and monster hunters, and welcome back to our series on mythical creatures and beasts. Today's topic has been requested many times by several people on my channel, so I decided to finally give in. The only reason I waited this long is because the imagery of today's topic might be a bit problematic, at least from the perspective of YouTube. Regardless, I will try to use pictures that are not too spicy. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the succubus and the incubus. Since these entities don't have a huge amount of lore behind them, at least overview-wise, I decided to put them both in the same video. Also, they're more or less two sides of the same coin. I'm your host, the Grimdark Narrator, and without further ado, let us proceed, shall we? Nowadays, the word succubus doubtlessly conjures up images of women with long wavy hair, silky skin, and flawless curves. They wear skimpy leather outfits to flaunt their bodies, and they don't even try to hide the signs of their demonic appearance. These can be wings, usually bat-like, barbed tails, curled horns, and glowing eyes. But these creatures were not always this glamorous. From the dawn of their legend well through medieval times, succubi were considered hideous and deformed monsters. They were somewhat smaller than the average person, and they stooped and crawled instead of walking upright. Their feet were like those of raptors, their faces like those of a gargoyle, and their fingers ragged claws. Personality-wise, there is once again a difference between today's succubi and the succubi of ancient legend. The she-demons of today have intense charisma and seductive power to match their perfect looks. They are clever creatures who can tantalize men with words as much as they do with their body. They can be domineering and vengeful if they are slighted, but they ultimately take pride in their ability to please and manipulate men. The ancestors of today's succubi, on the other hand, had personalities as nasty as their physique. They were sneaky, controlling, and malicious. Despite being sex-crazed, they had no interest in pleasing a man. Instead, they used sex to their own purposes, to please themselves, to corrupt the pious, to gain life energy, and even to have children. Maybe the most famous seductress of all time, Lilith, is also known as a mother of all succubi. She appears in many cultures and mythologies, including Sumerian, Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Judaic, and Christian. Lilith first appeared in Sumerian culture as a goddess of fertility and witchcraft. Later, the Assyrians and Babylonians began associating her with dark demons. The Greeks gave Lilith an extensive backstory via the creature we now know today as Lamia. I actually made a separate video on the Lamia, so do watch it to learn more. Judeo-Christian mythology also put their own spin on the legend of Lilith. They described her as the first wife of Adam, created at the same time as him. Unlike Eve, however, Lilith was a lot more rebellious. She refused to honor Adam as her leader. Instead, she went on exploring on her own and discovered the Red Sea, where many demons dwelled. This rebellious woman found that she liked the demons a lot more than she liked Adam, so she mated with them and began, bearing Lilim at a rate of more than 100 a day. These Lilim then went out into the world as demons and became what we know today as the succubi. Female sex demons have been around since the dawn of folklore. They can be found in many cultures across the world. India has the Yakshini, Arabian folklore has the Quarina, Native Americans have the Deer Woman, China has the Mogwai, and Greece has the Lamia, out of many. It is impossible to know which of these legends was first, if any. Most likely, many evolved separately around the same time. The word succubus itself, which is a combination of Latin words meaning to lie down, first appears in medieval English. By the late 15th century, these creatures were well known and often discussed by theologians, who tried to explain their origin, their ability to reproduce, their sexual appetite, and more. Later, succubi began popping up during witch hunts. They were women who tried to seduce men and they were accused of being succubi in disguise, while on the other hand, women who became pregnant outside of wedlock were accused of consorting with incubi. During the Renaissance, interest in the grotesque, subversive female demons declined. Instead, artists shifted their attention to the Greece's Lamia, who was both beautiful and unfairly cursed. It wasn't until the rise of Gothic literature that the succubi began to reclaim the spotlight. However, at this point, they were changed from their original form, being far more beautiful and intelligent. From a psychological perspective, the legend of the succubus is fairly straightforward. In the older days, many men were intimidated by women who took control of their lives and their own sexuality, so sometimes they literally demonized any kind of rebellious behavior. There might also be a biological explanation. A not insignificant amount of people suffer from sleep paralysis, a condition that causes the brain to regain consciousness before the body does. During an episode of this, people suffer from hallucinations involving all their senses and an extreme sense of terror. These symptoms can easily be mistaken for a demonic visitation. Now, the incubus is pretty much the male version of the succubus, but there are a few differences as well. These creatures might seem silly and laughable, but they are in actuality quite dangerous, since they can cause unwanted pregnancies or even death. The word incubus is derived from the Latin preposition in, which in this case means on top of, and the word cubo, which is Latin for I lie. Thus, the word incubo translates roughly into I lie on top. Like many mythological villains, incubi have been glamorized in more recent times. Today, they appear as young men with perfectly etched muscles, powerful wings, and long suggestive tails. In the past, however, these nocturnal fiends were far from attractive. The original incubi were small creatures, with faces like that of a monkey or a gargoyle. They usually had dark skin or fur, claws, horns, and bat-like wings. When they weren't flying around through the dead of night, they crawled, climbed, and sat in a hunched position. Unsurprisingly, they also had exaggerated genitals. The incubi are famous for their insatiable lust, just like the succubi. These demons are so sex-crazed, however, that their human partners can literally die from exhaustion after too many midnight visits. The incubi can also be violent. Many victims describe the demon sitting on their chest or covering their mouths so that they couldn't breathe. When an incubus arrives to have his way with a woman, he takes precautions to prevent her from interfering. He might put her in a trance so she is unable to wake up, or paralyze her so completely that she can't even cry out for help. During the encounter, the incubus might try to impregnate the woman. Interestingly, the incubus itself is usually said to be incapable of reproducing, so it uses the sperm collected from a human male instead. If the woman gives birth to a child, it will be a so-called cambion, a human with some magical or demonic ability. One of the earliest mentions of the incubus comes from Mesopotamia once again, and the character known as Lilu. It is said that Lilu disturbs and seduces women in their sleep, while a similar demon, Lilitu, appears to men in their erotic dreams. Two other corresponding creatures appear as well, the Ardat Lili, who visits men by night and begets ghostly children from them, and Irdu Lili, who is known as the male counterpart to Ardat Lili, and visits women instead. These demons were originally storm demons, but they eventually became regarded as night demons due to mistaken etymology. According to some sources, the incubi and the succubi are said to be not different genders, but the same demon able to change their sex. A succubus would be able to sleep with a man and collect the sperm, and then transform into an incubus and use that seed on women. Though many tales claim that the incubus is bisexual, others indicate that it is strictly heterosexual, and finds attacking a male victim either unpleasant or detrimental. There's also many stories involving the attempted exorcism of incubi or succubi who have taken refuge in the bodies of men or women. According to the Malleus Maleficarum, exorcism is one of the 5 ways to overcome the attacks of an incubus. The others being sacramental confession, the sign of the cross or recital of the angelic salutation, moving the afflicted to another location, and by excommunication of the attacking entity. On the other hand, the Franciscan friar Ludovico Senestari stated that, and I quote, "Incubi do not obey exorcists, have no dread of exorcism, show no reverence for holy things, at the approach of which they are not in the least overawed." Cultures all across the world have sexually driven demons. The native Amazonian people believe in the boto, a pink river dolphin that turns into a male sex maniac at night. Chilean people believe in the trauco, a dwarf who seduces young virgins. Swedish people tell stories of a nocturnal horse who rides on the victim's chests at night. And in South Africa, the tokolosh stalks virgin women. Undoubtedly, throughout history, incubi were used more than once to cover up cases of sexual assault or rape. However, there may also be a less sinister explanation for the worldwide popularity of the incubus. Ironically, it's the same as the case of the succubus, aka sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis occurs when a person wakes up from REM sleep, but their body remains in a sleep-like state. Although the person is fully conscious, the muscles remain immobile, just like they are during REM sleep. The person might also experience pressure on the chest and a feeling of suffocation, since the body's pulse and breathing rate is slower, as in REM sleep. But the most terrifying symptom of all is the so-called hypnagogia, a multisensory hallucination that can conjure up visions and even smells and sounds. With all of these symptoms put together, sleep paralysis may be the closest thing to a demonic encounter that a sane person can experience. And this, my friends, has been what I wanted to tell you about both the succubus and the incubus for today. I know there's many offshoots of these sexually obsessed entities across the world, and I might cover some more of them in the future in individual videos. As it is, in this lore series, I mostly try to provide overviews. Are you a fan of the succubus or the incubus? Which one do you find more interesting and why? Do you think they're just one entity able to change their sex? Let us all know what you think about them in the comments below. Was the episode informative or entertaining? In that case, please click the like button and subscribe for future content. Thank you very much for watching, and I wish you all an awesome day. This is GDN signing off.